Hello and welcome to what I believe is, Comedy Slab Edition 132. We are going to put on, well, that's not even a joke.
You lost real faith early on there, didn't you? You're listening to what I believe.
I'm not a numbers man. I just left an edit point so I can change it if I got it wrong. 134. I'll just edit that in. They'll never know. Anyway, I'm Adrian Lacey in the southeast of England. He is, where are you? You're up there, aren't you? Well, it's down there if you're in Scotland or the north of England. He's in the Midlands. He's neither hot nor cold, somewhere in between, a bit like the Goldilocks of parts of England. And anyway, I was about to say we're going to put on the slab of comedy this week, South Park, Series 12, Episode 7, otherwise known as Super Fun Time. But just before we do that, well, I suppose I should welcome any newcomers and explain very briefly. The slab is a notional marble slab on which we put a different comedy each week. We take it in turns to set each other homework, and set you homework indeed. A TV, radio or podcast comedy show. First, we like to do a bit of comedy news, and this relates to Inside Number 9, which we have previously slabbed. Well, one episode thereof, which was it's probably the darkest of anything we've ever slabbed, because actually it was borderline not even possible to call it comedy. Whereas normally you can say they're dark comedy, can't you? Black humour or whatever. It was the 12 Days of Christine with a fabulous Sheridan Smith. So if you search for Inside Number 9 on a previous comedy slab, you will find it in our archive, which is all there. But they're up to Series 6. Can we believe that? I'd lost track.
Well, I can't tell you how long I've sat there waiting from the end of Series 5. And they did a special, I think it was a Halloween special after the end of Series 5. And thought, it was a bit of a false dawn, because I thought, oh, great, this is the new series starting. But, I mean, I've sat there waiting for it for ages, yeah.
And it is, it's a right old chocolate box assortment of fantastic talent, including Adrian Dunbar, Kevin Bishop. We've slabbed him in Star Stories. Your mate, Nick Mohammed, who you've... Well, I think you've won your case, haven't you? From many slabs ago, you complained he didn't work nearly as much as he should do with his talent. And now
he's exhausted now.
Boy hasn't had a day off in months. He hates you.
He has had a breakdown. He hasn't had a day off since I mentioned it. Since I finished the sentence, he's not stopped working. Yeah. Kevin Bishop, I love as well. I would watch Kevin Bishop sitting there reading out the phone book. Honestly, I really would. I think he's fabulous. I think he's been in some great stuff. You see, I'm glad you used the chocolate box analogy, because they're all soft centres, aren't they? There isn't a bad one. There isn't a toffee amongst them, is there?
No, there's not one that anyone would pass over. The fabulous Sian Clifford. The name doesn't immediately click with me until they say, the Fleabag star, and then I remember, yes, Phoebe Waller-Bridge's sister in Fleabag.
Yeah.
Who is just, I mean, I've only got to look at her face, just a still of her face in that character. It's the intensity just makes me roar. She was brilliant, almost overshadowing Phoebe Waller-Bridge, as I may have said at the time when we slapped Fleabag.
And another lad who I don't think gets enough recognition, maybe does a lot of theatre, I don't know. And this is the thing, we don't see them on the box and we think they're dead, don't we? That's just the way it is. But Patterson Joseph,
theatre is at the moment. Oh yeah. Of don't tell me, Peep Show.
He was Johnson, wasn't he? The boss, the very earnest boss in Peep Show.
He's a slippery, slimy character, isn't he?
He was horrible, wasn't he? He kind of sailed them all down the river at the end of it. But that's why you loved him. I thought he was just brilliant. But played the part really well. Just really understated, wasn't it? And some fabulous actors and actresses that.
And Sir Derek Jacobi. I've never heard of him. I think he's new to the scene, isn't he?
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Jacoby, but...
right, okay. He's a DJ, going by his initials. Ba-bum. Okay, enough nonsense. Anyway, thank you to comedy.co.uk. You can find more details there of Inside Number 9 and many other shows and comedy news of various shades and hues. Right, so we come to the matter on the slab, which is South Park. So it's an animation. It did, I read, start out as cutout animation, if I read that correctly. maybe in the early days, or maybe that was just pilots. But so that's literally cut out paper. But it's certainly got that look, and it's attempting that look using computer animation. So there's a computer program, the things you learn online, called Maya something, not Maya Angelou, Maya something else. And you think, is that actually from the Mayan people developing computer software for video animation? I don't know. That could have been millennia before we got to it here in the West.
Well, in the 80s, there was an Aztec camera.
And now it's a video camera because it's acquired extra features, so that's not bad. Okay, I think you've been Roddy framed. I think we'll leave that where it belongs. The reason I wanted to do South Park was because of your Irish roots, Mr. O'Connor. I wanted to be able to say they've all fallen out, love. Don't kid yourself.
Dear
I wanted to say they've Kilkennied. That doesn't work, does it? They've been to Kilkenny. That's it. They've gone to Kilkenny. So I should have rehearsed that. Anyway, that doesn't work if you don't know either South Park or any medium-sized towns in Ireland. But anyway,
isn't it strange?
Yeah,
isn't it strange? Isn't it strange?
Carry on. Yes, it is. What?
That's all I wanted to say. Isn't it strange?
It is. No. Well, the whole of life is.
Isn't it strange that I said to you that I'd only see clips and all the rest of it, but I knew enough about South Park. If you'd have said to me, what do you know about South Park? I'd have said Kilkenny. Not knowing really what I'm saying, or other than Kenny's a character.
Yes, and each week he gets. Well, they threaten to kill him. I don't know if he gets killed, but certainly this episode is no exception. Talking of episodes, number thereof. Did you see the total number of episodes? We talked about how many series last week, which is big enough, but multiply that by however many episodes. It's 310 episodes they made. I think they've drawn a line under it now, but you never know.
I was going to say, when you look at The Simpsons and Family Guy, which I suppose are their peers, they regularly go well into the 20s episodes per series.
For a series, wow, yeah.
But they what they do, I think they start in the late summer, heading towards the autumn, and then they have a break around Thanksgiving, and then they have another one around Christmas where they don't have any episodes, and so their year has kind of got these big blocks where it hasn't got any episodes in. So it's a bit. It's not like the UK at all. Really. It's a bit weird in terms, and that's how they end up having 19, 20, 21. 23, 25, even headed towards 30 episodes in a series, which is huge, isn't it? Really, this is the land of six a series, and that's all you're getting, so you better like it.
Yeah, exactly. I had an American trying to working at the BBC, trying to explain to his relatives why the BBC was begging for a third. Not third series, but third edition of Sherlock Holmes. Well, no, is that third series? Anyway, just very few shows. Hugely popular. Everyone's crying out for it. If it was America, they'd be begging to stop, wouldn't they, after series 25, as you say.
Yeah, they're
but
just
over
making
here, and he couldn't explain it to his American relatives. What do you mean? That people want it. It's work for actors. It's work for technicians. It will be fabulously popular again. And yet it's not made.
Did you tell them it's because they spent all the money on Gary Lineker?
I told them to refer to you because you're so angry about everything at the BBC. You are Mr. Angry.
Give me my number and I'll explain to him how it works or how it doesn't.
Yeah, but hopefully get the anger out without too much bloodshed, of which there is plenty in this episode, I have to say, which suggests, in the moment you hear the word cartoon, you think kids. I would say this is not for children.
It's very violent, isn't it?
It is. I mean, shockingly so. But that shows how much I was drawn into the story. I actually cared about these electronic images in front of us, which is quite a craft, isn't it? So,
yeah. I mean, I see. For me, I'm not. I don't think you are really. We're not kind of prudish in that sense, are we? We're not kind of from the Mary Whitehouse squad, but. I did kind of think, it did occur to me, I think, wow, this is really quite violent. I mean, and gratuitously so, really, I suppose.
Yes, it feels that at first. And then I wonder, I mean, this will be a bigger question perhaps for later if we have time, back to chin stroking, but whether it's trying to make a bigger point and a more serious point that appears on the surface, a satire on the American way of life, or, sadly, the American way of death as well, gun culture. I mean, it can raise those issues, but equally, we might conclude between us, no, it's an entertainment that goes a little bit sick at times. Anyway, so it is the creation of actors Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who they're actually schoolmates, weren't they, in Boulder, Colorado, which leads me to say that Parker met Stone in Boulder. That's not bad, is it?
I like it.
You've got to be bolder to point that out. But anyway, but they've done something very canny. Whether they've got some inside knowledge of American copyright law, they have retained such creative control over it. They might curse it sometimes, because did you see how many characters Trey is performing?
Yeah.
He's a voice artist, obviously, in this, being a cartoon. It's over 6 characters he plays. Right, so before we hear the audio clip, let me set the scene. So we're always in the same school. What are they, 10th graders? No, it's not called that, is it? 10th? Anyway, they're kids at a school. Yeah. It's the same class we're following. If I had to guess, I mean, they're quite petite in terms of their depiction on screen compared to adults. So... and they've got quite squeaky voices. So what are they, 10 years old-ish?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, I mean, it's notional, of course, it's fictional. So, and it's at various stages quite surreal. Anyway, they're going on a school trip. It's meant to be educational, would you believe, to a pioneer village. Although, of course, it's trying to reenact a pioneer village. And the year, supposedly, is 1864. And we hear that quite a few times. One of the running gags is they're presumably actors, or actually it doesn't necessarily, they don't have to be actors. But anyway, they stay in character, as we will hear, despite all goings on. And there are some very serious goings on in this particular episode. So they get to this pioneer village. They've just got the one teacher looking after them. That becomes quite hilarious as well. Looking after himself, as it turns out, a bit later on. But then there is something rather serious, which is an armed gang force their way into the grounds of the pioneer village. And there are 2 main stories going on 2 sites, 2 adjacent sites. 2 of the characters, that's Eric and Butters, so they're 2 of the kids. They've looked through a fence early on before this armed gang break-in, and they've seen the grass is greener, as it were, looking just a block or 2 away. They see a fun time, spelled Phuntyme. That must be a brand name in the terms of the fictional show. And it's, I don't know, our equivalent would be an amusement arcade, but, writ large. So why wouldn't you want to be there rather than talking about a smithy in 1864? So they break loose, and so you'll hear a certain amount of intercutting between the super fun time, which it's a beautiful musical thing. We'll talk music probably at some stage, again, time permitting. And then we come back to what's going on, the rather violent stuff going on at the Pioneer Village.
Dude, this place shreds! What should we do first? We should get back to Pioneer Village, that's what we should do! Butters, we're going to get back before anybody even notices we're gone. Let's go hit the bumper cars!
Over here, this looks like an office.
Here's a phone!
Wow, what a strange contraption!
I can't get a dial tone.
What's the number to dial out?
Dial out? Partner, them are some funny words you're using.
Dude, do you understand what's going on here?
Maybe they're right, Brian. I mean, this is a special circumstance that... I mean, this here room sure is strange. We have nothing like these fancy devices in our time.
No, I'll say.
I got through. Hello, police?
911, what's your emergency?
There's some terrorists or bank robbers or something that have taken our class hostage.
Taken hostage where?
The old Pioneer Village off of Kipling.
You mean that annoying place where employees won't break character?
Sister, you don't know the half of it.
Oh, so much to go out there. The voices, I did that whole premise of the fact that they wouldn't break character. It just got better and better and better as the episode went on, didn't it? Really, because it sort of gathered more consequence as it went along. Which
you could say that again. It's literally life or death consequence.
Yeah, it was. Like, even in a life or death situation, they still wouldn't give it up, would they? They go, oh, for goodness sake. Headline, what did I think? Oh, yeah, headline was Not Such a Walk in the South Park.
Isn't that a bit neutral in terms of what you feel about it? I mean, I get the pun.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be easier than it was. I didn't. It's not me at all.
Oh,
and I'll tell you
else?
why. And I'll sum it up in one word: is crudity.
Is that what you put in dips at posh meals? Oh, no, it's cruddites. Oh, you and your sticks of carrots stuck in your hummus. Hummus. Oh dear. Oh well, are people to conclude you're highly prudish despite not having a religious cell in your body?
No, and I don't mean crudity in that sense. I mean crudity in visually. It's so crude. And then you made reference at the top of the podcast, more or less, to say that the original animation was cut out. And I don't know if did you manage to find the original things that started the ball rolling, because I think it's called The Spirit of Christmas, or Jesus versus Frosty, I think is on.
I read
YouTube.
about that, and so it's the Lord versus Frosty the Snowman. I mean, these are not reverential people, are they? Not religious types.
No. But that doesn't bother me. But it is appallingly basic. So, like the audio, for example, it sounds like it was recorded on a cassette machine in the 1970s. I mean, it might have been done. I can't remember when it was actually.
You're talking about an old episode, not the one we've slabbed.
No, this is the original episode that they made before they got picked up by a network and it was made into the real deal kind of thing. That's
inevitable, isn't it? That it's going to be a bit sort of homebrew.
Yeah, but it hasn't really. I mean, despite the fact that it's now digitized, it's now gone onto computer, and I know it's still the same method that it's mimicking, but it's gone onto computer. It doesn't seem to have like the characters move in a kind of. Like a bobbing up and down way, don't they? There's no animation on their arms or their legs, and they like kind of.
But isn't that a sort of punk ethic? It's like we can't play our instruments, sort of thing, like punk music.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I don't know. Really, it's interesting because when I looked at a lot of comments, because I mean, people love this. I mean, if they're a fan.
Oh yeah,
they are evangelical, aren't they? They are just completely head over heels in love with the whole thing. And even fans say, I don't know why I love the early ones. I guess it was just because I was younger and it was nostalgic. But they said they look back on the first 5 series, and it is so basic and so crude that even fans think, oh, this is awful.
But that is just okay. That's a realization of an idea. I wonder whether it's the sheer strength of the story, which I had to admire. I'm talking about the one, obviously, we put on the Slab series 12, episode 7, super fun time. But that can carry, can't it? You can have a really good quality story, and maybe you're on a very low budget, but it's the story that draws you in, isn't it?
It's Nick, don't you? I mean, did you get the reference that the lead robber was Alan Rickman in Die Hard, the Bruce Willis film?
Right, which I hadn't seen. So no,
exactly.
It's my confession.
That's the thing. If you haven't seen the film, it'll go. But yeah, I mean, it was Die Hard.
Yeah.
So,
but I imagine, unlike these people, they hadn't actually done a robbery at the local Burger King.
No.
I'm guessing that's not Die Hard.
I can't remember what. I mean, it was almost like scene for scene in places.
Was it?
Yeah, where he's like, he wants to know the code. Is directly lifted from the film, But
that makes me respect it all the more,
right?
I think,
yeah.
But that's an homage, isn't it? But with a jokey twist. It's not a rip-off because it's doing something different with it, or it's absorbing it into a totally different story. Did you say there was lots to enjoy before you started then pulling down the edifice?
Yeah. I mean, there were bits in it where I kind of thought, oh, this is doable kind of thing. But there were lots of stuff. Like, I struggle with the voices, this whole speeding the voices up, and I get why they do it.
Was it done through speeding up, do you think? Or,
yeah, it is.
These days, of course, you can pitch up.
Yeah, no, they changed the pitch on them, don't they? I saw
it saves their voices,
yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, I saw a video of them doing it. Apart from one of the characters, I think he's Trey. Which is not his real name, is it? Trey Parker, but Trey Parker's daughter. No, his real name's Randolph. But so,
wow,
maybe
I wonder why he changed it to Trey.
So they all called him Randolph the Rude-Nosed Reindeer. I don't know, but no, Randolph 7 Parker III is his name.
Oh yes. Well, I'm tempted to ask what were the other 2 Parkers up to, but. Again, that's another show. Of course, they're behind, as we mentioned in brief last week, they're the guys behind the Book of Mormon.
Yes.
Which is done very well as a stage show, other than the obvious time when they had to shut down, sadly, as we're in COVID times as we speak.
Anyway, go on. Not all about me. What about you? How did you find this?
Well, I've already given the game away that I think it's very good storytelling and twists and turns. And actually, if you measure a story by the journey it takes you on, and we, to some extent, we're seeing it through the eyes of these 2 who've sort of bunked off, or it's more complicated, isn't it? Eric and Butters, I've mentioned. Butters, well, that's a term. It's had a bit of a history. I don't know if it means the same thing in the States, but I think it's come from butt ugly. Someone who's Butters. It's sort of London speak, but I think it might have come via the Caribbean, maybe Jamaica. I'm going off script here. One of many things, many wormholes I wanted to travel down, but didn't have time for in the end, because you can only have so many distractions on the Comedy Slab. But Butters he's a guy out on his own, isn't he? He's sort of not teacher's pet, but he's very tied to teacher's rules. And teacher said, hold on to Eric's hand and don't let go until we're back on the bus, or words to that effect. But if you were to fast forward, it's not too much of a spoiler. I would say it vaguely to say, when they get back to the bus, you've got a feeling, yes, they've been on an adventure. We know we've been through a story and a journey with them. And it's not just the journey of the bus, or indeed just going to fun time. But man, is it dark? And I'm left with this question that I sort of previewed, which is it just meant to be an entertainment? And is it a bit sick and a black comedy, and we go, ha, 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 and then... we all go our separate ways until next week's episode, or whenever you want to watch the next one? Or is it a deep satire on American culture and the various malaises within that? Have you got any hunches about that? I know you were turning the tables on me. I suppose I should give my own answer, which is, I think a lot of it comes from their strong feelings against religion, which can only have been a driver with the Book of Mormon as well. They don't feel any sort of obligation, or we must keep the religious right on board here. We don't want to offend certain sectors of particularly American society. They just don't care, do they? Well, it's outspoken.
The curious thing about it is that, and it caused a bit of a stink at the time, I think, is that the 2 of them are both Republicans.
That's interesting.
And everybody assumed they were lefties because, they even had Trump murdered in an episode, I think. But of course, you can be a Republican and not be a fan of Trump, can't you? I mean, there's plenty of those in the States. But it only came about,
or you can just consider it as entertainment. Yeah, sorry, Karen.
It only came about when they were put up for this left-wing Freedom Award. And they went to accept it, and they went, "Oh, thanks very much. This means so much to us because we're Republicans." And everybody laughed.
Well, they shouted down.
No, everybody laughed, and
They thought it was a joke.
And they went, "No, seriously, we are Republicans." And I don't think they were very happy that they'd awarded them this award. Then the people who were supposed to do it.
So someone hadn't done their research on Wikipedia, had they really?
Well, or they didn't know at the time. Maybe they hadn't come out as Republicans, but they'd assumed because of the content. And this is the thing. This is how. And I think it's quite an interesting. The only reason I mention it is because it's quite an interesting observation, or it's an interesting take on the way that we are. We very often talk about there's no dialogue between people now. The extreme left just wants to shut people down and stop them talking, and the extreme right have got their own problems with issues that the hatred and all that kind of stuff. And so there's no dialogue. There's the reason there doesn't seem to be many reasonable people. We're all very polar, and I just think it's interesting that somebody looked at the work that they were doing. You can be a Republican and you can take the mickey out of Republicans. That was always the way, wasn't it? You didn't have to have your own politics in order that you. Well, I can't joke about the left because I'm a lefty.
Well, I was just going to say. There are two main strands of different political thought. There's how you can be a social liberal but an economic conservative, can't you? You can believe in low taxes, and I think Trey Parker, I was reading, sees himself as a libertarian. So you can be a libertarian on the left or the right, can't you? Really, and I mean it's more complicated, but yeah, someone should really have done their homework in giving them that award and making certain assumptions. But I certainly, they might believe in religious tolerance to the extent you can believe whatever you want, but they certainly don't tiptoe around it, as I'm saying. The clue is in Jesus versus Frosty, isn't it?
And I think that's how it should be. And we've had this conversation before, and I think this is where comedy in this country has certainly lost its way, is that the vast majority in this country is all left-wing comedy, and anybody who is right-wing comedian is either at the very best ignored or at the very worst harangued and vilified, and I think we've kind of lost out. It's a real sadness, I think, in this country now with comedy, is that the great thing used to be, the great thing about Spitting Image back in the day was that it kicked the seven daylights out of whoever you were. If you were in the public eye and you were there to be poked fun at, so it was Kinnock, it was Thatcher, and the marked difference when you look at it now is that we'd had one minor gag about Keir Starmer, and that was the rest of it was pulling hate and scorn on the right wing of politics, and it's a shame. I think because it's rubbish, really.
I think to some extent it's defanged itself, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I wonder if that comes out of a lot of what was called alternative comedy. I think, I got the sense it came out of a reaction to Thatcher, and it's almost like it hasn't really recovered from that.
No.
And it feels it's just got to pursue that. We really need to get on to our second audio section. So the plot very much thickens. Police have arrived on the scene in force because that you heard the phone number earlier in clip number 1. I don't necessarily need to give too much away about Eric and Butters, but having absconded to fun time, they got a bit confused as to why all the coppers are there. They've obviously not been around from the arrival of Alan Rickman and his friends, as we've discovered. And then they're so committed. Yeah, I must ask you after this, what is this commitment to staying in character for the actors / performers to the Pioneer Village? But anyway, one of the bad guys, bad characters in the Pioneer Village has been released, and there are consequences there as well.
Frolic, check in. Have you found any other employees? We found somebody. We found this guy in the jail of the sheriff's office. You let out Murdering Murphy?
Y'all are gonna get it for putting me in that Thor jail.
Stop it! Stop your bad historical acting right now!
Tarnation! Why'd you let Murdering Murphy go? He's a bad man.
I am the f***ing bad man! Do you get that? Knock it off and give me the mineshaft access code! You're just gonna have to kill us, mister, because you ain't making no sense at all. I won't kill you if you don't tell me. I'll kill one of them. Not me, not me, not me, not me, not me. You want to see a child die?
I don't want to see a child die.
I am so disappointed in myself. Teacher gave me a responsibility, and I was just supposed to look after my partner, and I blew it.
Don't be too hard on yourself, Butters. You can't help being a douchebag.
When I hear the other characters, the non-core characters, just talking normally, I realise how much the speeded up or the pitch change voices annoy me really, and
annoying you.
Yeah.
Well, I was working out how much they were speeded up, but yeah,
kind of ruin it a little bit for me. But yes, straight out of Die Hard. I mean, it has its moments, doesn't it? I mean, there's no question about it. There are funny bits in there, but and this whole thing about never breaking character, I just love. I was nearly thrown out of a Disney park in America by Mary Poppins. Because this is true.
Real Mary Poppins,
yeah, true story.
Julie Andrews.
Yeah. Because this woman who was like in character as Mary Poppins, and she did a little talk, and then all the people moved on. And I said to her as we were walking away, I said, "Very nice, thank you." I said, "Where are you from?" And because her accent was all over the shop, it was like it was like Dick Van Dyke on crack, you know. And I said, "Where are you from?" And she went,
"Smorgasbord."
"I'm from Liverpool." And I went, "No, you're not." I said, "If you were, you wouldn't have an accent like that." And so I started ribbing her about her accent, you know. And I said, "Oh, like Mary Poppins would have been London or whatever." And she threatened me. She said, "If you don't go away, I'll call security. I'll be thrown out."
Well, but she dropped out of character herself in threatening. She failed to see the irony.
Unless Mary Poppins had carried her own security detail, I don't know. But there you go.
Well, she would have to these days, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right. So where are we then? Oh yeah. Do you read anything into it other than just sheer entertainment? Are they trying to say something about small town life that these people can't fall out of character, or is it just a nice little twist? At one point, it looked like it was the most wonderful thing that they wouldn't fall out of character. I thought they was going to save the kids from the bad guys with the guns. I'm not including the police in this instance, but it doesn't work out that way. The body count actually goes up rather than down.
I think it's just a commentary, really, on the fact that there are places like this around America, and you know, it is very much frowned on for them to be out of character. I think
you would get sacked, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think. I had friends who worked at a small theme park in the West Midlands. They had summer jobs, and I'm sure a couple of those had that were a different kind of thing. But they used to wear the costumes and that, and if they didn't prance about like as the character should, then they got a right old tater in. So so it does happen, I guess. But yeah, it was just a nice thread through the story, wasn't it? Really, but there wasn't enough in there for me, really. I mean, I certainly wouldn't go back. I certainly found it, like I say, that crude animation, and I'd use a better word, punk. But that whole thing, I never liked punk. I never liked punk music because, by the time punk came out, I'd spent 6 or 7 years learning to play a guitar, and I thought, what was the point of that? And so, so
did the neighbours.
Exactly. But this whole idea of saying, well, I can't animate, so I'm going to do it in a punk way. No, you just can't animate. So why are you doing an animation?
I'd cut them some slack because I think it's consistent with the. If it was too smooth, it wouldn't fit with the sort of rough edges of the characters and the setting for me.
It's curious.
Also, it is a consistent look, at least.
Yes,
you have to accept that,
and a stylised look, isn't it, as well? I mean, there's no question about that. I just to draw a parallel. When Family Guy was picked up, Family Guy was very crudely drawn in the early days. And I think even the first series was quite crudely drawn. And when that was picked up, they cleaned it up more or less straight away. Before, I mean, they did 2 series, and then they cancelled it on the 3rd or 4th or something. Then it came back again. Right. But it's interesting, isn't it, that the studio didn't clean it up in that sense. They just digitised it and made it easier to do, but they didn't tart it up in the sense.
You made me think there of REM when they went from being a sort of rough-hewn indie band. If you listen to their early stuff, Radio Free Europe is one track which comes to mind. Compare that with when they signed to a major and then came out with the album Green. Actually, for me, there's much less atmosphere after that, but it depends what your tastes are. But certainly you knew, suddenly we're in the realms of, it sounded like movie soundtracks. Yes. The difference was palpable.
Yeah, because they've moved into
you could hear the money.
Bigger and better studios, haven't they? Yeah, and bigger and better producers, and bigger and better techniques. Yeah, that it kind of goes with it, doesn't it, really? But I don't know. And it is what it is, and it doesn't offend me. And it's not gonna ruin my life, but I just know it's not for me. I think even now, I'm kind of too old for it. I mean, this was the demographic for this was.
This went out in 2008.
Yeah,
so this is a credit crunch type of show, that sort of era.
They're looking at
crash.
They aimed it at 18 to 39-year-old males. That's who their audience is. So that ship sailed, hasn't it?
Many moons ago. Well, I think it would have been, given your age, it would have been a ship with sort of wormholes in the wood, and the sails would be a bit rough around the edges. Anyway, enough dubious analogies. To a score out of 5 for each of us. Whose turn is it, or who wants to go first?
Who wants to be a millionaire? I don't mind. It's. I've got mine ready to hand. If you want to.
Well, yeah, I've got a feeling it's certainly no better than 2. I hope it's not 1.5, but you never know with you. You don't pull your punches.
You never know with him, do you? That's the trouble in it. No, I'm going to give it. I give it a 2, to be honest with you, because. Okay. For all the reasons that I've said over the last 45 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. It's a 2 from me.
Okay, and I'm afraid I'm going to fall back on the default Lacey 3.5. I don't know why I say I'm afraid. It just feels like a soft option, but it isn't, because I do agonise over it. But it's somewhere between. I mean, I've got more time for it. I was less put off, as you gathered, with the what you've called the crudité of the animation. Didn't worry me, because I just accepted that's the world we're in. It's universe building, and they built this universe where people don't walk in a conventional human type way. They just sort of bounce along. And because I think the story is really good, and I didn't really get into the music within it, but I thought that was very, very strong in terms of scene setting, and the dark bits it made that much darker, gave them more gravitas, and it didn't feel like it was all played for laughs. So I entered that world. Oh, and I should add, it's a Comedy Central show with additional distribution by HBO Max, Paramount Home Entertainment, and SBP. So 3.5 out of 5.
Quite a Spartan soundtrack, wasn't it? It was. Did you notice that? There wasn't a lot of music or anything going on.
It's more sort of transient music or transitory between scenes.
Yeah, but
do you think?
Like at times, and I thought, it sounds really bare. The soundtrack sounded really quite barren.
Well, as in not thickened by a large orchestra, that sort of thing,
or just any kind of incidental. Yeah, no sort of stuff going on really. I didn't.
I wouldn't agree. There's none going on. The first clip, there's that lovely sense of when they open the door of the fun time. You can hear it if you go back to the beginning of the first clip. There's a lovely sort of, it draws you in. Right, we're in fun time now. Anyway, talking of fun time, we must look to next week's fun time on the Comedy Slab, and your turn to set the homework, please.
I thought I'd go for. I thought I'd give you a bit of a rest because I chose that 50-minute with Green Wing.
Yeah.
I thought I'm going to give him a rest. How can I give him a rest? I thought, I know, I'll rest his eyes and I'll just give him a bit of something to listen to rather than have to listen to and watch. So it's back to the radio for you, young man.
The wireless wave.
Back to the radio. I won't muck about with guesses and all the rest of it, but I would just suffice to say, I think he's quite a polarising comedian, actually. I think people either love or the opposite. I think they just really, really detest. I think this is what I understand. Anyway, I might be completely wrong. As we investigate it next week, but we are going to take on another case of Milton Jones.
Oh, right. Now I'll be interested to do that because whilst you've said he's love or hate, I'm not quite sure where I am. So that would be interesting to see if I fall into one of those extreme camps or whether I'm actually quite stuck in the middle with you, darling.
Yeah.
Like Steelers wheel.
Yeah. So I've gone for series 4 of another case of Milton Jones. I think really they're all kind of self-contained, so there's no plot lines that you've got to keep up with. It's just the curious world of Milton Jones. So it's series 4, episode 1, and it's an episode called Test Pilot. Test Pilot from another case of Milton Jones, which will be next week's Comedy Slab.
Lovely. Okay. So to parish notices, if you could recommend us to friends and family, that'd be fantastic. Get the word out about the Comedy Slab and how much fun it is. And of course, you can play along. You can also suggest shows for Slabbage. As someone has done just to me in the last week, it goes into the pot. But many thanks to Joss for her loyal listenership. Apparently, we're keeping her company on a walk somewhere.
Oh, that's nice. Do you know, I always like to think that's what we're doing, don't you? I don't like to think of somebody, I don't know, maybe sat on the toilet. And
no, I don't like to think of that, even when I'm there myself.
Not getting the satisfaction that they need and being sat there for 45 minutes with pins and needles coursing through their thighs. I like to think of people, I like to listen to podcasts and audio books in the summer when I'm out in the garden, when I'm doing, cutting the lawn and things like that. But I like to think people are out there walking and doing nice things. So that's lovely. I'm really pleased for it. Does she say where she goes? Does she just keep going and she'll be near Aberdeen soon? Or
no, I'd have to say she's down my way. So I think she might be somewhere near the River Medway, even as we speak. Depends on the weather. Yeah, very nice, idyllic. Even it's good enough
if
for
the rest of you. If you all want to get like close to your listening device, you can probably just hear the seagulls in the background now. It'd be quite nice.
Cue effects. Anyway, whether or not they materialise. Yeah, thank you. In the post. Or perhaps they could be played by Walter Pigeon. I don't know. It could work either way.
Like it.
Moving swiftly on, a generous star rating on iTunes / Apple Podcasts would be appreciated too. And then anti-social media, we are at Comedy Slab on Twitter. Do follow us there. And if you could give us a like, big thumbs up on our Facebook page, also at Comedy Slab, we would love you to bits. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your company. I'm sure you've got a handle on where to get us from now, but we're all over the place. We're like a really nasty rash that you've contracted on holiday and have no idea who it was you sat next to.
Sounds like personal history.
But enough of what I did in the summer, other than cut the grass. But yeah, so until next time, I'm off to go and sit on the toilet for 45 minutes, get pins and needles. That's how I knew so much about that. It was because I was speaking from the voice of experience.
It had that authenticity. There should be a new podcast, Comedy Constipation, with Shane O'Connor, which leads me to say...
Sponsored by prune juice.
Very lax. And I'm off to kill Kenny.
Oh, lovely.
Would you ever like it?